Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff, Junior Hockey Advisor. It is Wednesday night. It's time to talk some hockey, specifically junior hockey. Junior Hockey Advisor. We are here to discuss junior hockey. We're here to discuss the development process to move up from 14s, 15s, 16s, 18s, and moving into junior hockey, from junior hockey, and even high school and prep to junior hockey, and then junior hockey to college hockey. I hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a fantastic holiday season, and hope you're well rested. Happy New Year to everybody. I am excited tonight. We're going to readdress something we haven't talked about, haven't really delved into in a few years, and we're going to go back and we're going to discuss the American Development Model, the ADM, which can't be discussed without talking about the long-term athletic development model. And we're going to talk about its roots, the history, and how it's done, and how much credit should it get for the status of hockey as it stands right now, youth hockey, all the way up through professional hockey in the United States. This is, we'll give it our kind of a little grading, maybe give it a report card, and see what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. If somebody could, I sure would appreciate it. If somebody could just put a note on our Junior Hockey Advisor Facebook discussion group to go over to our page to pick up the broadcast tonight. For some reason, all of our different connections are up and running, but I'm noticing that our discussion page is not. So maybe if somebody could just throw a note up there telling everybody that it wants to participate, just to go over to our Junior Hockey, either our YouTube page, Junior Hockey Advisor, or to the Facebook page, not the discussion group, but the page called Junior Hockey Advisor. I sure would appreciate that. Maybe somebody could put it in the notes if they could do that. And I would love that help as we go along. Just me tonight, just me. So I can't work on that and actually discuss this and get the topic rolling and talk. Once again, it doesn't work unless you actually participate. Love to see your comments. At least let us know who you are, where you're at, and where you're watching from. Would love to see that in the comments. Throw that up in the chat. And if there's a specific question you want to ask, as always, this is Ask Me Anything. So you're more than welcome to ask any kind of question you want. We're going to try to stick to the topic first, get through as much of this, and hopefully have some fun with it. And with that said, what did I get for Christmas? I had a great Christmas. I got a lot of things. Probably the big ticket item. I got two things that I really like. The first thing I got was I got a new distance, one of those electronic distance things. So when I'm golfing, I play with my son a lot. My son is a single digit handicap player. He's extremely good, but he's got to stop and measure from everywhere. And I'm usually within a yard or two when he stops and goes, "Oh, it's 136." I'll be like, "It's 135." I won't even look at the little thing. But I got one of them now. I'm going to learn how to use it so I can get my distances down a little bit better, and have a little fun with the sport of golf. I can't beat him anymore. It's been years since I can beat him, but I can compete with him. And except, man, oh man, how do you compete with 24-year-old, 23-year-old at that age? How do you compete with them when they're bombing drives? Like, in my best days, I couldn't bomb a drive the way that kids can hit the ball today. And it's not just my son; it's his friends, it's his peer group, it's the younger generation. The way they swing and their fundamentals are so strong. It's fun to watch, but you take away the ability to hit the ball far off the drive. I can compete with him, and this year is my year. I'm going to spend a little bit more time getting ready for the game and have a little fun with it. Besides that, I got a okay, laugh if you want, but I got a new mixer so that I can bake some different things and have some fun in the kitchen. So I got one of those KitchenAids that you just dump all your ingredients in, you hit the button, and boom, it does all the mixing for you. You come back, man, oh man, easy to clean up, easy to do. You don't make a big mess when you got to mix things up. So really enjoy that. Once again, I'm Jeff. Let's get rolling on this. Let's talk a little bit. Hey, Danielle, good to see you. Jeff Fogelberg, good to see you too. From Wisconsin, that's Weston. And Jeff told us where it was a couple weeks ago when we were talking. So glad to see you guys on. All right, let's get rolling. So let's start off first with, just go through the basic. What is the ADM, the American Development Model? Everybody, that you get involved with hockey, you think that the ADM is something that USA Hockey invented. It's not. The American Development Model, just to give you an idea about this, I want to share something with you, just to give you an idea that it's not just long-term development, and ADM is just not a hockey thing. This is off of Google, and I hope you can see that. And that is actually dance, just dance. And dance has a long-term development model, and it has a athletic development program at ADM, proposing a long-term dance development model. Started for them back in 2014. So they're a few years back, but I went into this in some detail. And what I mean, I went into this in detail. I looked into not only dance, I looked at chess, I look at musical instruments, and I just wanted to say, okay, is this long-term development thing just hockey? And no, it's not. It's not. I knew this going back at the beginning. I used to be a franchise owner for two franchises with the Athletic Republic. Athletic Republic is a worldwide franchise for athletic development. And so long-term athletic development and the ADM were Olympic terms with them first. In other words, as I went through training and we trained our employees, we learned that this is something that the Olympics, the U.S. Olympic Committee, was big on long-term athletic development. And what that means is, long-term, it's stages. It's trying to, take the right ages and do the right things with kids, and not try to, overcompete at a younger age, and not try to do things that are out of sequence for the body's natural growth development. We all know that there's different muscle growth. There's, puberty, men and women develop differently. There's bone plates that move at certain ages. All these things are happening. And so along with the mental development and your brain function development, what the long-term athletic development model does is it kind of puts a timeline together for you. It doesn't kind of, it does put a timeline together that allows you to actually, get the most results out of the age. So, hey, look, for some of you, this is not the topic tonight. I get it. Some of you will find this very interesting, but it is interesting to know. And what I want to do is I really want to kind of gauge how much credit the USA Hockey gets for this. So, there is a mandate from, there's a governing body. U.S. Olympic Committee is the overall governing body. Then each sport has a governing body that reports to the Olympic process. So, there's a mandate to develop a long-term development model that's coming down from the Olympic process that gets pushed into every sport. So every sport that's part of the Olympics started following and developing their own, following what the Olympic Committee was doing, but developing their own sport-specific plan, which generated for us the American Development Model, which is a sports-specific model for hockey. Just so happens that at the same time that's going on, we had a revolution in the pro sport. And what I mean by the revolution is we saw the KHL come into fruition. I think that the KHL 2008, maybe, I think that's when the KHL started. And it came on fairly quickly, and it actually had a little bit more of a explosion of quality, much more so than was expected. I don't think anybody expected at first, or few expected the KHL to have the impact that it originally had. So the KHL comes on board, and it is a direct competitor to the NHL. So what does that have to do with us? Well, the NHL was spending millions of dollars in Europe and especially Eastern Europe on player development. So they had a lot of money invested in, drawing players out of those markets and getting them over into the United States to play hockey here. So when the KHL came along, clearly they weren't going to put money into developing players that were going to stay in the Eastern European market. So what Russia and some satellite countries. So what they did was they came back to the United States. Now they'd already have the NHL already has a whole uh, very extensive process in the Canadian side because they've got major junior hockey. We talk a lot about that. That's the CHL. That's the Quebec junior league. That's the Ontario Hockey League, OHL, and that's the Western Hockey League, the WHL. And since those are already in place up there and there's a model developing there and there's money being pushed into those markets, they decided to go to the USA Hockey and they said, USA Hockey, give us something. So the timing was very good because the Olympic Committee had already been pushing this long-term development model. Uh, there was a person at USA Hockey, Ken Martell, that actually did some graduate work to put together this ADM, and it had been sitting there. I don't want to say it was shelved, but it was already there, and they were able to use that as the base document to build what we now know as the ADM. So things came about in a very good timeline for us because we got a lot of funding. So what does that funding go to do? Well, some of it's bureaucratic. A lot of that money was put into, giving us these ADM directors or regional managers that cover the country to go out there and tell us, we should be doing ADM stuff. And, the ADM is very important. I am not a fan of bureaucracy. I think that a lot of this went to fatten USA Hockey and to spend money to bloat out a a hockey government. And you probably can tell how I feel about big government in the first place. I tend to want less government in everything I do, and I just didn't like to see that in the hockey because I don't think we, spending six figures on a person to come around, maybe get to your organization once a year and tell your organization, here's some things to do. Maybe do a meeting with the coaches, maybe do a 1 hour session on the ice where they run through some drills. I just didn't think it was cost effective. I still don't think it's cost effective, and I don't think we get a good bang for our buck. But there's some good things that came out of it. If you haven't gone to it yet, College Hockey Inc. is a website that explains Division I college hockey. It goes through all the rules. It goes through eligibility, goes through the clearinghouse. It's a phenomenal tool, and that was developed. That money was put towards that. Our national training and development program in Ann Arbor, that's funded largely from that NHL money that came over from from Europe and came back, and they repurposed that money towards our national development program. So the money that's spent on the two teams, the U17 team and the U18 team, comes from that. A lot of money is spent on marketing the USHL. Now, who knows what happens going forward? Because right now that number is around $1 million that gets put into marketing the USHL. The USHL is going to go through some major changes right now, and on the side as we talk each week. I don't want to dwell on this as much. We'll talk about it later if we need to. But two teams have already challenged the system and have requested that USA Hockey release them so they can join the OHL. That's Muskegon and Youngstown have decided that they would rather be in the OHL playing major junior hockey, which is extremely interesting. It's great to talk about, but if teams start leaving the USHL, do you still need to market it with $1 million? A couple $100,000 goes towards the North American Hockey League from that money. Our women's program at the national level gets money to support of this, roughly $8 to $10 million that comes in. All of these numbers are available to you. If you just go to USA Hockey and play around a little bit, you can find their annual budget and you can see how this money is earmarked right down to the I don't want to say to the penny, but to the dollar. You can pull it up and see that. So it's absolutely the amount of money that the NHL has put into what we're doing is good. That side of things on the development side has been phenomenal. Women's hockey is stronger. Our youth programs are stronger. Now, when you get into actually, the things that USA Hockey is preaching and striving for, a lot of it really isn't much of a change, except for they did put some mandates and restrictions in that most people are used to now. The first thing they came around with is the lighter puck, the light blue puck that is much lighter than the black puck, and they put that into place for the mite age and younger ages, and honestly, I could give a I care less about that because I didn't see a marketed difference. Maybe a little bit here and there, but a kid that figures out the technique of shooting a puck can shoot a puck at 6, 7 years old with a black puck or with a blue puck or with a ball or with a golf ball or a tennis ball. Once they figure out the fundamentals and how to shift their weight properly, it's like throwing a ball. If I give somebody a lighter ball, it's going to help them a little bit, I guess. That was one change. The other change too is cross ice hockey and small space games. Now, USA Hockey, these weren't new inventions. You saw NHL teams, you saw NCAA teams, you saw youth programs utilizing these programs, for many years, decades before this came about. This ADM came about. So anyway, there are things that came out. So cross ice games, especially with mites and younger kids, having to play cross ice instead of full ice makes economic sense. But let's keep in mind too, there's another side of this. As much as USA Hockey preaches about cross ice, save money, the other thing that's really big is, only spend 25% of your time playing hockey, spend the rest of your time doing other stuff, which I'm a proponent of playing 3 sports, 4 sports, 5 sports. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's not forget who one of the corporate partners with USA Hockey is, and that is the rink development company. I believe that they go by the name of Rink now, or Star. I'm not sure which name they're going by now. Let's see if I can find that for you. Rink, RINK, Rink. They got Rink Magazine. That's the ice rink national governing or national body where people join, and it's their educational tool. It's their professional group. And what's interesting about that is their job is to try to keep rinks fully booked year round. Their job is to try to find unique ways to get people to skate year round. There is no ice rink out there that they could care less if your hockey team is using the ADM model or not. They want to sell ice year round. And the more rinks that stay open year round, the more pressure is put on local youth organizations, local coaches. Hey, if you want your rink to stay open, we got to buy ice in the spring and summer. Some rinks, they get a good deal on their winter ice because they commit to buying spring and summer ice, and they get a deal on their spring and summer ice. But the reason that's important to know is USA Hockey doesn't, they're not pure in this. What else means they're not pure? They run their summer camp programs. Their national team development models are all built to run in the spring and summer. Okay. To say that kids take off and put the skates down in March and don't pick them back up to August is ridiculous. Okay. Once again, fully a proponent of watching kids skate as much as they want to skate, but I'm also fully a proponent of learning how to golf, how to play tennis, playing soccer, whatever else you want to do. Hey, knock yourself out, play as many sports as you can. That's great. And kids can do more than one sport at a time. It happens all the time. For my generation, that's all you did all summer long is you played one sport in the morning. You got bored of playing that sport. You picked up another sport after lunch. It may have been baseball in the morning, then you might have went skateboarding for a while with your buddies, then you might have played football, or you might have played more baseball, and maybe you had some a spring hockey game that night. But you were doing all kinds of sports all spring and summer. So I don't. When we look at this model, I don't want anybody to think that I'm a just robotic, fall in line, listen to the gospel of USA Hockey and say the ADM is the way to go. The ADM's fine, but it did not solve the world's problems, nor did it do anything else besides kind of organize things in a better way, and rejuvenated by taking funds that were given to them and being able to disperse them to make the sport better. So yeah, the ADM is good, but like I posted an article. It's on Junior Hockey Advisor. It's on Junior Hockey Advisor discussion. It's an article I wrote 5 years ago at the 10-year anniversary of the ADM, and I talked about the other things that came into play that have made our sport better and have made kids better athletes and have made them better hockey players. Their mental aspect is stronger. Their creativity is stronger. Their skills are stronger at younger ages. And their ability to understand structure and systems are better and stronger at younger ages. And people will say, well, how do you know that? Well, YouTube. YouTube. Watch YouTube videos and watch people that post YouTube videos about their kids, and watch some of the things that a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old are doing, and realize that if there's 1,000 hits or 10,000 hits or 1,000,000 hits on that video, that means other people are going to try that stuff and emulate that stuff. Just like when the Michigan goal was scored, 20 years ago or whatever it is now, where you picked up the puck behind the net and you came around and you stuffed it in the upper corner, lacrosse style. That's commonplace in kids in the driveway, in the garage, in the basement, in practice. Kids at 7 to 10 years old can routinely pick a puck up on their stick like that now. It's not uncommon to see that. So social media, YouTube, the smartphone, what's important about the smartphone? How many times your kid gets videoed now where you can watch or replay things for your kid? It's amazing. You don't have to have fancy equipment now. You just have to have your phone. You can take a 1-minute video of your kid on a face-off play. You can video the whole game. Your coach can video the whole game. And it's convenient now to video, where it used to be you had to have tripods. You used to have a VHS tape that you had to slide in. Then when the tape got done, you had to put another tape in. Then you had to go back and make copies of that so everybody could take a copy home that wanted to see it. It used to be a pain in the rear end to video. Video is easy now. It's so easy now. What are other things that are besides the ADM have come into play in that same period of time? Well, private instruction has gone crazy compared to where private instruction was at 2000 and 2001, 2002. How do I know this? Well, I was in that industry for 20-something years. Private instruction used to be the assistant manager of the rink would take a half an hour of ice and help a kid on the side, and he used to set his own price. $20, I'll go out and work with your kid. And he'd have a pair of jeans on, and he'd have a wooden stick in his hand, probably still have his leather gloves on, wouldn't even have hockey gloves on. And he'd go, or you went to a figure skater and you worked with a figure skater that may or may not have some fundamentals that would cross over to hockey. Now, private instruction is, you can't go to a rink that doesn't have a private instructor that works out of the rink as a full-time or a big-time, part-time guy, or a full-time private instruction company is in the door. Add with that the advanced performance training that goes on across the board. You got sports-specific training now. Companies like Athletic Republic or Parisi come into rinks, and they have skating, treadmills. They have rapid shots. They have rapid shots as a machine that monitors how fast you shoot, how accurate you shoot, and your reaction time. Those are things that your kids at 6, 7 years old, all the way up through NHLers, can use. And then you get graded by the age you're at. That's phenomenal. That's a tool that makes you a better player. Those things didn't exist before. You know, the other things that are just amazing that have changed over the last 20 years, spring and summer hockey's changed. There is a serious effort into having teams that are organized for spring tournaments, and this is going. You can go up to Canada, you can go up to the Toronto market, and you can find a spring tournament to play in every single weekend. On the low end, there's the Canlands. Then you get into the pro hockey development, and the Ronald McDonald. You got all these different events that are up there. The bottom line is there are major events in Toronto every single weekend. Detroit's almost the same way. Boston is the same way. There's a couple other places around the United States that are that way. Why is that good? Well, because sometimes what happens. Here's exactly the way I see this. I'm going to be honest with you. We have tryouts for sports and youth hockey. As soon as the season's over, we're trying out for the next season. That means whatever bias that coach has, if it's a returning coach, that bias stays there with the players in that team. So regardless if you're a first liner, second liner, or a fourth liner, whatever that coach was thinking about you at the season end is going to carry over to the next day when the tryouts start. So you don't have a chance to do anything to improve unless you get away from that coach for a while. So what's nice about going and playing spring and summer hockey, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this too. If you got an opinion on this, throw it in the comments. Tell me you disagree with me if you want. But part of spring and summer hockey that I go against the ADM on is go play spring hockey, because usually you're playing with really good competitive levels that you're equal with, and coaches don't care if you try to do a spin move at the blue line. Coaches don't care if you try to score with a Michigan, because it's spring hockey and there's less emphasis on systems. There's less emphasis on being perfect every shift and staying with it, coloring between the lines. They let you expand a little bit. As my kids grew up, some of the times I heard this all the time. I would hear people say, well, we play for the Toronto Marlies during the season, but our kids really enjoys playing on this spring team because that's where all his buddies are and that's where he really has fun. So it kind of goes against what you think, but that's the way it is. Dave, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that I'm looking a little chubby? Because let me know what that means. I really don't know. But thanks for the comment. So anyway, spring hockey has been really important in the develop over the last 20 years, especially the last 15 years of this American development model. But there's one part of this that people are missing. Coaching has gotten so much better. Coaching is so much better in youth hockey than it was. And you might not believe this, but let me just kind of go through it. Nobody 15, 20 years ago, nobody thought about having full-time coaches or, paid coaches for a Pee Wee AAA team or a Bantam AAA team or a AA team. Now in many organizations, they don't have parent coaches. They only have paid coaches. And some, there's always an exception to that rule. But hey, when you bring in somebody that's paid, it does reduce the amount of friction of having a parent coach. It does reduce the amount of bias that comes along with a parent coach. And it sets it's easier to evaluate. It's easier to manage. I used to be the president of a youth organization, Rochester Youth Hockey. We had about 1,000 families in the organization. And I loved our teams that had paid coaches because you could sit down with them and manage them, give them a performance review in a much, much easier manner than the volunteer parent coach that if he gets upset with you, he's going to take, his player and 4 or 5 key other players, and he's going to go to Syracuse or he's going to go to Buffalo, or the threats there that they're going to leave if you tell them they can't do things, or that they're pushing the boundaries of a rule, or the going against the philosophies of the organization with whatever they're doing. And usually it came down to, doing silly things like playing 4 tournaments in away tournaments in a row, 4 weekends in a row in October. And you're like, come on, let's sit down and talk about this. And then they usually would get up inside and say things like, we're just going to take our ball and go play somewhere else next year. And that was always the threat. So paid coaches to me make a lot of sense. And, youth hockey and the larger organizations can usually find a way to fund those coaches to a certain extent off the tuitions that come in from teams. Smaller organizations have a little bit more hard time with that, and I understand that. But those are things that came along with it. So, the social media, the phone, video games. I can't stress how important video games were to the development of hockey players over the last 20 years. Playing NHL on your video game, either the individual, game while you're in the car or on your system at home, playing it on your PS, whatever they are now, PS2s, PS3s. I don't know what the hell they are. We got one sitting in the other room, but I don't know what it's called. I still call it a Wii sometimes, and my kid looks at me like I'm nuts. But the amount of creativity, the understanding about 5 players on the ice, the understanding about offsides. I can tell you right now, at about 10 or 11 years old, my kids could beat me at that NHL game, and I couldn't compete with them. And they understand how to drop the puck. They were making backdoor passes. They were doing give and goes. They were cycling the puck. They were doing things because they learned it on the video system that directly transferred over onto the ice. And they would see Ovechkin come down and do a spin move or a fake slap shot, and then they would try it on the ice themselves when they're at practice or in a game. And you could see it. You could see the exact same things happening. So the video systems and the video games had a tremendous effect on the game. So ADM, yes, it's important. The ADM has a place. It's kind of it's a set of rules. Now people say, well, do the top end players follow the rules of the ADM? No, the majority of top end players skate year round. And if anybody's telling you anything else, all you got to do is look at Connor McDavid and read up on Connor McDavid. You can see it. You can look at the Hughes boys, all came out of the Florida market because their dad coached down there. Then they went to Toronto. Then they all end up in the Michigan market. No, they might play other sports. I've got guys that they played for me or I worked with and developed, when they were younger. One's in the KHL right now that, it was embarrassing because he couldn't swing a softball a bat at a annual softball or an annual picnic with a softball game because he'd only focused on hockey. And he was a NHL / KHL level player, but couldn't swing a bat, couldn't swing a golf club, couldn't swing a tennis racket. I'm not for that, but they're out there. There's a lot of guys that are in, our system, our pipeline that are top level players that are extremely focused on their sport. You'll see guys that will immediately get off the regular season in juniors and they'll take a week or two off and boom, they're right into the gym and training and skating every day. Not a fan of that, but that's the way it is. That's the reality. Spring hockey is big. Going to camps is not as big as it used to be, but it still exists. So what are your thoughts on this? I've been talking now for a while. I kind of covered what I thought about the ADM. I got a lot of things I can talk about with the ADM. Remember, it's not just hockey. The ADM is part of the long-term athletic development process with the Olympic program in the United States. And it's just not the United States. The United States worked hand in hand with Canada when Canada was developing their long-term athletic model, especially around hockey, but they used it across sports. So things like that right off the bat, boom. The other things you hear is we got a model like Norway, or excuse me, Denmark, Norway. I can't remember who the Finland. Sorry, Norway. Part of that's not fair. I was looking at some pictures earlier. It kind of went down a rabbit hole, and where when I was looking at Finland, we just took a trip over to Europe. We took 2 trips over. We did all the Sweden, Norway, Finland, Estonia. We did Poland, all those. Then we also did one that we went on a river cruise, and we did a bunch of the other countries. We did the Austrias and the Germanys, and so I had these other countries on my mind. But Finland, with a very small country of 5 million people or whatever it is, with a couple hundred thousand hockey players, and they're doing so well. Well, it came down to funding again. It's not so much one model or one thought process. When some of their players became successful, they started, reinvigorating their program by reinvesting into better rinks, better equipment, more coaching. And yes, do they have a model? But it's not just a model. It's more ice time. It's better ice time. It's better coaching. All these things come into play together. So, what are your thoughts? Throw some comments up. I'd love to hear what you have to say on this. I also love to know what the comment fatty is about, and hear what your thoughts are on that from Nave that threw that up on the comments. Maybe that's what he's smoking right now, and he just didn't want to admit it. Not that I condone any of that type of activity. I'm not one that's ever partaken in any of that. So a couple other things I want you to think about with this ADM. And people get holier than thou all the time. And when I mean holier than thou, you'll hear people like Bobby Orr or Wayne Gretzky say, oh, you got to hang the skates up. You got to hang the skates up in April or March, and you shouldn't put the skates back on until the fall. Well, just remember when Bobby Orr and Wayne Gretzky were playing, first of all, Wayne Gretzky did not hang the skates up. He may have played other sports, but his dad talks about it in many articles about spring and summer games that he would play. Bobby Orr may have hung the skates up, but back in the day, in the 50s and 60s, when these 40s, 50s, 60s, Wayne Gretzky's a little younger than Bobby Orr, rinks shut down and only were open seasonally. So the majority of the rinks, unless you were in the city, shut down. In smaller areas like where Wayne Gretzky grew up, the rink shut down. Where Bobby Orr grew up, the rink shut down. It was only open in the winter. So you didn't have the choice unless you drove somewhere else to skate, which Wayne Gretzky ended up doing anyway. But, when they say hang the skates up, if you don't have an option to put the skates on, well, that's a natural occurrence for you, and you start picking up other sports and doing other things. Nowadays, I can tell you right now, I live in the outskirts. I live in a small town about 40 minutes away from Rochester, New York. Rochester, New York is not a huge hockey hotbed. It's a good hockey town. We got lots of rinks. I don't know of any of them except for, 40 minutes out from the rink that shut down in the or 40 minutes from the epicenter of Rochester. The rest of them keep their rinks going 7 days a week, all year round. The fourplex sometimes shuts down 1 or 2 rinks and runs just 2 rinks or 3 rinks during the summer. But as they've gotten busier and gotten better, they usually keep 3 rinks up all year round. My point there is, there's a demand and it's being filled by rinks. That's why they keep them open. So it's a catch-22 on this thing. Wayne Gretzky can say a lot of things about, hanging up the skates, but let's look at another thing about this ADM. ADM really pushes to stay age specific. In other words, 6-year-olds should only skate with 6-year-olds. 7-year-olds should skate with the 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and they should stay within the model and move up. Wayne Gretzky was sometimes skating 3-4 years above him and above himself in age. So when he was 8, he's skating with 12-year-olds. Okay, the ADM wouldn't have allowed that. Okay, the ADM discourages it to this day. They want you to stay more age appropriate for your physical safety and your mental development. And Wayne Gretzky wouldn't have been able to do that. So, the other thing too is keep in mind a lot of organizations, and when I mean, remember, everything in USA Hockey, there's independent organizations that make up USA Hockey. Minnesota as a state is one district. They're their own independent organization. New York is their own independent. Michigan is their own. Mass is their own. And like the Southeast is made up of several states that are their own organization. They have their own bylaws. They have their own, president. They have their own board of directors that govern that area. And they set their own rules, and they might adopt whatever USA Hockey is saying, which 99.9% of the times they do. But when the ADM was originally rolled out, Minnesota, our biggest producer of high-end hockey players, our biggest producer of hockey players in general, didn't come on board and fought USA Hockey on the fact that they did not think that USA Hockey should be mandating to an area what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. Very similar to a state sticking up to the federal government and saying, no, we've got a process in place already. We'd like to do it our way. Now, some things it makes sense for the federal government to come in and have a universal set of rules or laws that govern everybody in the United States. But there's a lot of times where the state has their own set of laws that make more sense for that state. Minnesota, when it comes to hockey and their way of doing things, they have a phenomenal record of development. They can do things there that other people can't. I'll give an example of what happens in Minnesota that you don't see in other states. Barn practices. I've got a good friend that I skated with, played with him for years after juniors, and knew him in the military, knew him after the military, watched his kids advance up and play Division I college hockey. When he was coaching youth hockey, he would open up the two sides of his barn. They would flood his barn, and they used the barn to skate when the kids were 5, 6, 7 years old. Okay, so they're already doing small space games there. They're already doing a lot of touches. They're already doing unique things that and clearly keeps the price down because that team doesn't have to go to the local rink and skate because they're doing a barn practice, or they're doing a lake or pond practice or a lake practice. Minnesota can do things like that because they got a concentrated amount of players that's off the charts compared to other states. So anyway, what are your thoughts on this? I'd love to really have some feedback. Not much feedback tonight. I get it. It's the first time coming back after the New Year's. People aren't back on in mass like we will be in a couple weeks. It always works the same way every year. But hey, thank you for joining. Let me know in the comments if I said anything that made sense. Let me know in the comments if all this sounded like a bunch of ridiculous nonsense to you. Let me know if there's anything else you would want me to expand on in this and either write or discuss on our next live stream. Love to hear it. And thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for being a part of this. Once again, Happy New Year to everybody. And I hope I gave you some information that would help you. And if not, please throw it in the comments, and I'll make sure that we try to do a better job next week and the week after on getting on the topic for you. Thanks so much. Have a great night, everybody, and we'll see you next week.